The most exciting configuration about the full moon in Aquarius on August 9th, 2025 is the Kite configuration. This is a somewhat rare configuration that allows us to rise to new heights if we take advantage of it. The Kite is created by a grand trine, which represents the tail of the kite, with an opposition, which is the tension that is needed in order for it to rise to new heights, and two sextiles that meet up to the peak of the kite. The full moon itself is not in alignment with any of these planets that are creating this kite. However, how we feel about the kite may very much be affected by the full moon in Aquarius. The tail of the kite represents the energy that needs to be leveraged in order for us to take advantage of this celestial alignment. Now, the tail of the kite is in opposition to the peak of the kite, obviously. It's represented by that red line that you see in the picture beside me. And the peak of the kite, in this particular case, is represented not just by one planet, but two planets that are in conjunction with one another. These two planets are Saturn and Neptune, both at 1 degree in Aries, and they are in opposition to the tail of the kite, which is Mars at 1 degree in Libra. What's interesting about this opposition is that Saturn and Neptune are hanging out in Mars's temple. So Aries is ruled by Mars. That's its home. And Mars, on the other hand, though, is in a temple that's on the completely opposite side of the neighborhood in the Venusian temple of Libra, ruled by Venus. So when we consider that Aries is ruled by Mars and that Aries ruler is the planet that's in opposition, we have a lot of Martian energy at play here. Mars and Libra aren't exactly comfortable with each other. However, in this particular case, they do somewhat balance each other out. Mars in Libra has the ability to give assertive diplomacy, while Saturn and Neptune, being in conjunction in Aries, allows us to dream the big dream and then ask ourselves, what is it that we need to do in order to give enough structure for that dream to actually manifest into reality? Neptune is also about our spiritual connection. So if you're someone who has been searching for more purpose-driven life, a more connected, fulfilling life where it feels that it feeds your soul, then this Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries is a real gift, because that conjunction can create the breadcrumbs needed in order to be able to answer those big questions. Now, this opposition that very much has an element of the me versus we themes has been a theme that we have revisited over and over and over the last few years. Most of us have had a complete roller coaster ride of within our relationships. But when we have Pluto and Aquarius as the planets that are creating the sextile to Saturn and Neptune at the peak of the kite, we have Pluto, which is associated with death and rebirth, and Uranus, which is sometimes described as a wrecking ball on the other side, which rules Aquarius. We're being asked to not just reanalyze our interpersonal relationships, but we're also being asked to reanalyze and to create structure around how we want to relate to all parts of our lives. When we talk about relationships in astrology or energy, we're not always just talking about how we relate to each other, to our community and to other human beings. We're also sometimes talking about how we relate to different aspects of our life. All aspects of our life we have a relationship with. We have a relationship to food, we have a relationship to money, we have a relationship to the city that we live in, the environment that we're living in, our body has a relationship to that. Every aspect of our life is defined by some sort of relationship. And with Pluto being the planet of death and rebirth, as well as the planet that will take what is hidden and bring it up to the surface, being the only planet in this kite configuration that is at the numerological degree of 2, which is the number of relating, and it's in Aquarius, which is the planet of revolution, ahas, the miraculous, and dramatic change, we're being asked to reanalyze how we relate to life in general in order to create the structure that will allow us to align with the kind of life that we want for our future. And Uranus on the other side is saying something somewhat similar, because Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, which is the temple that Pluto is hanging out in with right now. Now, Uranus is in Gemini, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Very interesting that this kite is coming at the very tail end of a Mercury retrograde. Mercury comes out of retrograde officially on August 11th. And we are already starting to feel that retrograde-y kind of energy starting to dissipate by this time. Mercury retrogrades are oftentimes defined by delays in communication, in travel. They can make us feel less focused. Mercury retrogrades from people who follow astrology are always kind of approached with like, oh no, not that again. But Mercury retrogrades, the magic that they do hold is the ability to reanalyze, to reassess, and to reimagine. So this Mercury retrograde has primed us for this kite. Because now at the very end of that retrograde, as we are starting to come up with maybe a little bit more clarity, perhaps we've had some new ideas during that retrograde, new perspectives. Perhaps we have had some frustrations, but maybe it has revealed certain truths. Maybe it has revealed certain options, or perhaps closed options that we thought were available, and now we know not to pursue that particular path. And now we have Uranus, the planet of dramatic change and revelation, hanging out in Mercury's house, hanging out in Mercury's temple. Just as Mercury is coming out of the underworld with new perspective, perhaps new gifts. And Pluto, by the way, is the planet that's associated with the god of the underworld. So here's an analogy to help us kind of conceptualize the relationship between all of these planets. It's like all of these planets, they all have their own temples that are Airbnbs, and they all decided to swap vacation houses for this particular time of this full moon, and they're on the phone talking to each other about their experience in the other planet's vacation temple. So what happens when you go on vacation to perhaps the opposite side of the neighborhood, the opposite side of the world? You get a new perspective. That's what these planets are offering each other. So with Gemini being about new perspective, because it's associated with Mercury. Mercury is how we process information, but it's also about communication. Uranus is also asking us to reassess how we communicate what it is that we want and what it is that we need. Ask for what it is that you want. Ask for what it is that you need, even if it seems out of the ordinary or unrealistic. Explore the possibilities. And that will be leveraging this Aquarian energy that Uranus and the house that Pluto is in right now, that Aquarian energy of curiosity and exploration. Now, what might trip us up a bit with this kite might be a couple of things. It could be that we might feel guilty about how what we want might affect others, or we might be afraid of how others might respond. There might be folks who don't feel that we should want what we want. They might not give us permission to have those needs met. All of the Mars energy that opposition has is telling us, don't wait for permission. If you don't have the permission, you're not going to get it. However, one of the things that Mars and Libra can give us is it can heighten our gift of persuasion. It can amplify our ability to make a convincing argument in a debate. And it can make us very strategic about how we relate to others or organizations, institutions, in order to be able to have the outcome that we would like to see. So if you are faced with any kind of legal battles, child custody, divorce, inheritance, or negotiating some sort of shared resource, if you're having to go through any kind of legal process or mediation, this kite can very much help support you to create a fair and just outcome. One of the other things that might trip us up is we might wonder if it's worth the effort. The thing to ask yourself is, if you don't do the thing that you are being inspired to do, if you don't speak up for yourself, if you don't take a stand for what you believe is right, or pursue what it is that you know will help align you with your purpose and fulfillment, are you going to be resentful? If the answer to that question is that you're going to hold in your heart resentment or regret, then the answer is a unilateral, yes, it's worth the effort. But don't take my word for it. Let's take a look and see what the tarot has to say. So, as I'm shuffling here, just set the intention that whatever messages are most pertinent to you in your situation, that you'll know right away which messages that are coming through that are for you. All right, so the very first card that we have come up is the Judgment card. This is telling us that we are at a milestone. The judgment card comes up when we are hearing the call. And this isn't just vain distraction kind of wanting. It is purpose. It's fulfillment. It is aligned with what it is that we are meant to do in this life. Judgment card comes up when there is something bigger than ourselves that is pulling our desires. This next card is the King of Swords reverse. This guy... when he's in his reversal, he's just a jerk. This King of Swords, when it's in its reversal, is about somebody in our sphere. This is somebody who's really stubborn, over-authoritarian. They want their way or the highway. It's an all or nothing kind of mentality. And where we're at is we're trying to create a copacetic kind of outcome. The Six of Pentacles is always about generosity. It's about shared resources. It's about everybody getting their dues. It's about a fair outcome. But the King of Swords has a very different perspective on what a quote-unquote fair outcome would be, because keep in mind that this person is all my way or the highway. It's all or nothing. And that kind of mentality can come up with the Kite kind of configuration. And the Kite configuration, it's always asking us to let go of the all or nothing, the either or kind of mindset, and to ask ourselves, what is the middle ground? In this particular case, what the outcome will require is a new perspective. You know, I'm not making this up. The Page of Swords, Swords is about the intellect. It's about communication. So all of that Mercury kind of themes that we had already talked about. In the Page is the card in the court cards that comes before the Knight. It's the child. It's the new beginning. It's fresh energy, fresh perspective. And so with it being swords, it's about fresh energy, fresh communication, and a fresh perspective about this imbalanced relationship that we are having to juggle. So with the Two of Cups being reversed, this might mean that in order to get the Six of Pentacles, so to have that copacetic kind of outcome, the justice that is needed, that we might have to let this go. We might have to let it go completely. So this is really about fortifying our boundaries. It's not just about saying no when we mean no and yes when we mean yes. With the King of Swords in its reverse, this guy, he may not even hear the answer that he doesn't want to hear. And that energy may be the thing that kind of messes us up a bit, because we might then start doubting, well, maybe I'm the one that's being unfair. Maybe I shouldn't want what it is that I want. My friends, this test of boundaries is a spiritual test. This is a major arcana card. And so when the major arcana card comes up, it means that it's a major milestone. The rest of these cards are the details that are describing what this milestone entails. But the Judgment card is always about a spiritual test. It's about being at a crossroads. And if we decide to answer the call, then we will rise to new heights. There will be a rebirth that happens as a result of us fortifying and standing by those boundaries. Chances are you've already said no when you mean no, but this particular situation is saying that you might have to repeat yourself, you may have to fortify, and you may have to really take a stand for what it is that you truly deserve. The Mars in Libra, in addition to it being associated with assertive diplomacy, can also remind that Libra energy that she deserves justice just like everybody else. That she might be so focused on helping standing up and negotiating a just outcome for others, she needs to be careful about not forgetting what is a just outcome for her. And if she allows her cup to be empty, if she allows others to sabotage the very resources that she needs in order to pursue fulfillment, in order to align with her purpose, to be able to do the things that she needs to do to be happy and fulfilled, then she's not going to be able to create the just and harmonious outcome that she deserves. Now, do take a look at the energy of these cards. So these are defining how we are to stand up for our boundaries. None of them are fighting. None of them are anger-inducing. And boundaries don't necessarily have to be about punishment, and they're certainly not about vengeance. Usually punishment, vengeance, anger, all of that comes as a byproduct of boundaries being already crossed. When we feel strong and fortified in our boundaries, we can actually act more effectively and efficiently, feeling more neutral because there's less fear and hesitation there. So to help those of us who are empathic, who are starseeds, who are highly sensitive, who are spiritual seekers, be able to fortify our energies and be able to direct and protect our energy in a more effective way, I've created a free resource. It's called the Starseed Survival Kit. All you have to do is click the link below and it's yours. So if you are easily affected by the energy of others, then check it out with the link below. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you soon.